What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. Welcome to the Thomas Mott Show on a Wednesday. It's time to get into Mel Kiper's very first 2023 NFL first-round mock draft. We're going to focus in on the top 10, 1 through 10, where Mel Kiper has these players going, and obviously breaking down, does it make sense? Could things change? And where will we be this time in April when the mock draft starts to change a lot? Because Kiper does like 5, 6, 7 of these before actual night one of the NFL draft. But it's his first one. It's fun to break down. I love the NFL draft. Let's see where he goes with all of these picks. Number 1 overall, the Chicago Bears. Now, no trades in this mock draft, and I think Mel Kiper mentioned on ESPN this morning he does expect the Bears to most likely field trade offers, potentially for a team wanting to trade up for a quarterback. The Colts sitting there at number 4 could make a lot of sense, but we're not doing trades in this one according to Mel, so he has them stay put and take what Mel considers the best player in the draft, Georgia defensive tackle Jalen Carter. Here's what Mel said, quote, "I thought long and hard about a trade here with the Colts, Raiders, and Panthers as the top candidates to move up for a quarterback. If I'm Chicago GM Ryan Poles, I can move down a few spots, add premium picks, still get my choice of the best defensive prospects. I'd make a deal. Takes 2 teams to make a trade, however. It's never a guarantee, but for now, let's see the Bears keeping this pick." And they go with Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle out of Georgia. And Carter is really the wild card of this draft. Now, you can make the argument that the quarterbacks are going to be the main focus of the top 10, and they probably will. Right? Last year, not a very strong quarterback draft. This year, a very strong quarterback draft. And so quarterbacks, you could see 4 go in the top 10. And we'll see that a couple of surprise guys go in Mel Kiper's top 10. But Jalen Carter is really the wild card here because you have to take a look at defensive players and try and figure out who's the best. And while most people who aren't that familiar with mock drafts and the NFL draft in general will tell you that the Alabama pass rusher Will Anderson is the best defensive player in the draft, there are a lot of people in the know that would say it is Jalen Carter. Now, I don't know which is better, honestly. I mean, Carter's a great interior pressure guy, interior run-stopping guy. Will Anderson, more of a true pass rusher. You'd figure a true pass rusher, you think Myles Garrett, you think Aiden Hutchinson would kind of go ahead and get that number 1 overall pick. Think Trayvon Walker last year. But a lot of people are saying Jalen Carter is the best overall NFL prospect in this draft, and so if Chicago wants to stay put and take that best player, Carter would make a lot of sense. But you got to keep an eye on not only the Bears inside the top 10, but Carter as well to see who's going to go 1 and then slide a little bit. Houston is obviously going with a quarterback at number 2. Mel Kiper gives you his first, I would say, hot take here in that CJ Stroud will be drafted higher than Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. Now, his reasoning for this, I don't have to read you this because I watched him this morning on ESPN. His reasoning is that C.J. Stroud, in Mel Kiper's words, should have beaten the Georgia Bulldogs in the national playoff or the college football playoff semifinal. Had it not been for Marvin Harrison Jr. getting injured, according to Mel Kiper, C.J. Stroud would have won that game. He did play very well against what is widely considered the best defense in the entire college football. Stroud needs to use his legs more. That was always his knock at Ohio State. The arm talent, the pocket passing ability, it's always been there. He's going to be a very good quarterback in the NFL just due to that alone. But what does every single good quarterback in the league nowadays still do well? They scramble well. Even Joe Burrow, when we look at the final 4 quarterbacks alive in the NFL playoffs this year, possibly the least mobile out of the 4. Maybe you can make the argument for Brock Purdy, but all 4 of them are still mobile and can run for first downs. Joe Burrow did it last weekend against the Bills in the snow, a couple of big runs there. And so Stroud, not really a runner, showed that he could run in the Georgia game, and according to Mel Kiper, that has elevated him in his overall draft stock. The Texans go Stroud at number 2. Now, in reality, Houston will take their pick. They get the preference of Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, and so whoever they think is better, they will take. But understand that 2 with the Texans will either be Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. There is no other option. It would be a miracle and an absolute shock if it was not one of the 2 top quarterbacks. Number 3 is going to be fascinating, Arizona. Now, Arizona very much tied to Kyler Murray, and you see here they take Will Anderson, the pass rusher. That would make sense, right? If you're the Cardinals, you are going to take the best player available that's not a quarterback because you're still bound to Kyler Murray, whether you like it or not, and Anderson, after Jalen Carter, maybe considered above Jalen Carter, is the other best defensive player in this draft. They're going to lose J.J. Watt. They could use some help in terms of pass rusher, outside linebacker, and Anderson can definitely be that guy. He's not going to fix all the Cardinals' issues, but when you're inside the top 5, you can't outthink it. Think Atlanta taking Kyle Pitts a couple of years ago, or Zeke Elliott going at number 4. You can't overthink these things. Most likely, the best either offensive lineman or best defensive player is going to go. You're the Cardinals, you do one of the 2, and here it is Will Anderson. Now, if this Mel Kiper mock holds, then you have a very good opportunity for the Colts sitting at 4 to not have to move up and still get their quarterback. Now, there's plenty of reports that they could make a trade, go out and try and sign Lamar Jackson or trade for Jimmy Garoppolo or do what the Colts have done every year since getting rid of or since the retirement of Andrew Luck. But if I'm Indianapolis, you get an offensive-minded head coach, you draft the quarterback that he wants, that is going to be Bryce Young, and you try and rebuild what has really been a good franchise over the past decade, past 20 years of my lifetime. They go Bryce Young here. It could easily be C.J. Stroud, the Ohio-Indianapolis connection, if Young were to go to number 2, but Bryce Young at 4 does make a lot of sense. Now, here's Seattle. This is interesting. Will Levis. Levis is fascinating. Kiper goes Seattle at number 5. Levis is that quarterback in the draft that could be the next Josh Allen. Now, not in terms of size or strength or arm talent, but the way that Josh Allen was considered a very average to below average quarterback in college football. No one talked about him at Wyoming. Levis gets a little more publicity because he is in the SEC, but he's still not even close to being talked about as, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. Now, he could turn out to be really good. Seattle most likely not going to re-sign Geno Smith. He's kind of had a lackluster second half of the year despite being nominated for Comeback Player of the Year. Levis is going to be the third quarterback taken behind Young and C.J. Stroud. Will he go as high as Seattle at 5? That's going to be my question, but Kiper feels very confident about that. Okay, moving on here. Detroit. This is a very safe pick. Tyree Wilson, pass rusher out of Texas Tech. The Lions just need to keep adding, star players. Their defense is the one big problem right now. The offense is fine. And Wilson, many mock drafts have him as the number 2 defensive end behind Alabama's pass rusher, and so you can really make the case that behind Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson makes a lot of sense. Detroit takes him here at number 6. All right, we'll get on to the Raiders here at number 7 in just one second. First, though, if you are a new betting customer at FanDuel, they have an incredible playoff opportunity for you guys right now, where new customers can bet $5 and you get back $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Now, FanDuel throughout the entire NFL season has had a lot of bet $5 and win $150 if your bet hits. No. This is crazy. It doesn't matter whether your bet wins or loses. If you just place a $5 bet and are a new customer at FanDuel, you are going to get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Link is down below in my description box. Check out this for new customers. You can bet on not just the NFL playoffs, but anything at FanDuel, but the NFL playoffs for really good new customer promo. Again, link down below. You don't want to miss out on this because it's only going to last another couple of weeks. Okay, number 7, Raiders. Many people considering them going and getting Tom Brady. That seems to be kind of the leading place in the clubhouse. And so they go with the offensive tackle out of Northwestern to kind of give Brady a little bit of help in terms of pocket protection. Now, Tom Brady's big issue, I think, at Tampa Bay this year was the presence of, one, not having a running game, and that it is impacted by the offensive line, and 2, not really having any pass protection. There are plenty of other issues, play calling, the age of the players around him, but getting an offensive lineman for the Raiders would make sense, especially if they have Brady at this point. No real issue there. You can make a case the Raiders could trade up and draft a quarterback if they don't get Tom Brady and they trade Derek Carr, but right now I think Mel Kiper's assumption here is that it's Tom Brady. Or if Derek Carr does come back, slim chance, then you go get the best tackle in the draft, and that is the one out of Northwestern. Atlanta Falcons, number 8. They go Myles Murphy, the other good pass rusher out of Clemson. There's an argument that both the Clemson pass rusher and Tyree Wilson, the Tech pass rusher, are still going to be top 15 picks. Atlanta needs pass rusher help. Grady Jarrett, he still leads the team every single year in sacks, being a defensive tackle. They need to get a difference maker. Their offense, with the right quarterback, I think with Tyler Rozier, the running back, and Drake London and Kyle Pitts being healthy, can do some things. Their offensive line played much better this year. It's still that defensive end position that needs help, and Murphy makes a lot of sense. Carolina, they need a quarterback. How about this from Mel Kiper? Anthony Richardson in the top 10, the quarterback out of Florida. Now, Mel Kiper says it right away, quote, "I wouldn't play Richardson in year 1. He needs time to develop. He's not an NFL-ready thrower, but he's an awesome talent, raw quarterback in a 6'4" frame who would be one of the league's most electrifying runners as soon as he steps on the field." That's true, but the question is, do you spend a top 10 draft pick on him if you're Carolina, or hope he falls to the end of the first round, trade back up, and get a really good non-quarterback player at number 9, and still get your quarterback later in the draft? That's my question. Richardson has got to be able to throw the football. Running the football, we said earlier, is important, but every single quarterback in the Final Four of the NFL playoffs this year, they are better throwers first and then are great runners. Jalen Hurts was just a good runner and not a good thrower last year. He won 8 games, pretty decent roster. Give him a better roster and make him throw the football better with the ability to run, and he's an MVP candidate and might win a Super Bowl. So Richardson here is probably the hottest take that Kiper has inside the top 10. All right, number 10 is my Philadelphia Eagles here. We got to at least mention them. They go with Cansey, the defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. This is the 10th overall draft pick via the trade, essentially, for Chris Olave that was taking place during the draft last year when New Orleans went ahead and traded with Philadelphia. It ended up being a top 10 pick, and Philadelphia goes and gets a D tackle. Now, a couple of thoughts here on a D tackle from a Philadelphia perspective. Yes, Kiper makes the argument here. You're probably going to lose Fletcher Cox. You're going to lose Robert Quinn. You might lose Brandon Graham. You might lose Javon Hargrave. That's true, but you did go get Jordan Davis. And So a lot of Eagle fans would like a cornerback here, and I'm definitely one of those who can make the argument, but if you re-sign James Bradbury and Avonte Maddox is healthy, you might not need a cornerback. So this is going to be a fascinating pick for Philadelphia. This feels like best player available, and maybe Kancey is the best player available, but I'm not sure D-tackle is the biggest need for the Eagles, unless you're guaranteeing me Javon Hargrave leaves, which I think Philadelphia's going to try to re-sign him, much like they're going to do with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So we'll see what's happening there inside the top 10. Okay, thumbs up for the top 10. We're going to quickly scroll through here and look at some of the other surprise picks. Don't want to go pick by pick. I mean, 32 picks is a lot. But are there any other big-name players that jump out at you as you go through here? How about the first receiver off the board, Jackson Smith and Jiba, for the wide receiver from Ohio State? Obviously had some injuries this past season, so he only had 5 passes. But had he been healthy, he would be a lot higher of a draft pick. The Jets go wide receiver again, perhaps with the idea that they have either Aaron Rodgers, based on recent rumors, or they go get Jimmy Garoppolo, or a new quarterback besides Zach Wilson. That's interesting, though. Let's keep going here. Not a lot of surprises, and then you come all the way down to, again, wait for it here, Quentin Johnston, wide receiver out of TCU at 22, the second wide receiver taken inside the first round. And then how about this one? Jordan Addison, the wide receiver out of USC to the Giants. The G-men need wide receiver help. I'm not sure Addison's the third best receiver in this draft. There's some arguments there are better ones, but New York definitely needs one of the better wide receivers, and so Addison makes some sense. How about this at 26? Bijan Robinson to the Cowboys. That is crazy. I mean, here's the question mark. Yes, Pollard has an ankle injury, and he's going to have a long recovery following that loss to the 49ers. And yes, Zeke Elliott is very washed, but did the Cowboys really need to go spend a first-round draft pick on a running back? You feel like they have a lot of other needs, maybe leaving wide receiver, right alongside CeeDee Lamb, to me, is a massive need for the Dallas Cowboys. But Bijan Robinson, much like Zeke was, considered one of those generational running backs like Saquon Barkley coming out of the NFL draft. You know he'd be dangerous with the Dallas Cowboys, but he's the biggest need for a Cowboy team that seemed like throwing the football was the issue in losing to the 49ers, and that stems from Dak Prescott, and not running the ball. Final couple of picks here, again, looking for any sort of surprises that would really make you jump out here. Zay Flowers, the wide receiver, going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Juju has been very, very, good this year, but he's a free agent alongside Mecole Hardman, so maybe another receiver for Mahomes could make some sense. But you'll notice also there's only 31 picks because the Miami Dolphins forfeited theirs with the whole Tom Brady owner tampering situation. So there you go. There's your top 10, and I look at some of the crazy overall draft picks here in a Mel Kiper mock draft. Now, let me just end by saying this. I like Mel. I love mock drafts. Mock drafts are meant to be a little bit dramatic. They're meant to be talked about, and they're meant to not be perfect. Mel gets a lot of things right. He gets a lot of things wrong. He was one of the big ones in on Josh Allen, and he also loved Jimmy Clausen back in the day. Everyone likes to rip Mel Kiper and Todd McShay and these draft experts for getting things wrong. This is so hard to do. It's so hard to perfectly predict not only the first round with trades, but predict who's going to be good, who's going to be bad. I respect what Mel does. I think he's more right than not, and honestly, his top 10 so far, minus maybe Anthony Richardson, makes a lot of sense. This will change. I'll obviously talk about it when things do change, so subscribe and thumbs up for the show. But that is where we are at with our first mock draft for what is every single football team but the Final Four, what everyone is focusing in on going into the NFL offseason. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.